Hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. Today we're talking about a fanfiction called The Prophetess. Details about the fanfiction will be in the description below. This starts off with Ben he just died and Klaus having just brought him back, as a ghost. And so he's sticking around Klaus. And this is the first time because he's got nowhere else really to go or look over. Klaus is the only one who can see him. And so this is the first time he's really looking at Klaus and seeing him and what he's doing, because him and all his siblings all have this kind of perception of Klaus, right? He's kind of the druggie, right? He's the one who, and for obvious reasons, he doesn't like it. They know that he doesn't like it when they all talk about his drug problem, and they are aware that he does drugs, but with him kind of following Klaus the entire day, he's like, oh, he keeps getting surprised. It's it turns out no, he's not really he gets notes. Notes from who? It's Cosmina, but Ben doesn't know that, and he doesn't even know who that is, right? He just gets notes that just kind of appear. The first note he saw appear in a tree. To him, it looked like Klaus just kind of stayed there after everyone went inside and went off to a tree. This random tree, climbed it, and got the note off the branch. It's why did you know this was even here? It's why is this even here actually? And so, but it's Cosmina telling Klaus, to help Ben, if he still has the beast that's inside of him, help him kind of come to understanding with the beast, because it's its own separate thing, its own entity, which makes, Klaus in turn look at Ben and see that he does in fact have two souls, him and the thing inside of him. So it's okay, gonna have to work on that. But he never tells him any of this, right? He doesn't even get to look at the note. And so he follows him there because he's called back, and he goes to talk to Vanya. When did he start talking to Vanya? It's when did he start doing any of this? And he starts to notice things where usually they're all thinking, oh, he's doing something, he's on drugs, he's going with the deal, whatever, right? He's actually not. He's actually doing, the most he does is smoke weed, and that's even occasionally, really, he does that. And he wonders when did he start talking to Vanya? And so finally, when he's 10 o'clock, that's when he writes a note, and that's where he's finally able to okay, ask your questions, right? Because the entire day he just kind of ignored him and kind of pretended he wasn't there. And so that's when he finally asks all his questions, and Klaus answers. Cosmina is someone who he's never really met in person before, but they exchanged notes, and they anyway kind of met when they were 12. And since then, they've even started they've known each other, and they've even started up a relationship. So they're in a relationship together, and she will give him advice, and because he's ignored just as much, almost as much as Vanya is, really. And so he was happy to have someone else to reach out to, right? And the perception of everyone kind of knowing he's oh, again, the whole he's on he's on some type of hard substance. He's not. And he says Cosmina ended up helping me not, it's all he does is smoke weed, and it's only really occasionally. And she really helped him really not turn into really getting into hard substances, because the ghost and all of them screaming at him can be overwhelming. And he is a hell of a lot more powerful than he lets he lets on. He keeps it secret, some of his powers. He doesn't want to, draw more attention to himself. And this is where he lets Ben know that the numbers are kind of flipped. Because when you really think about it, it's Luther being number one, but what is super strength gonna do against someone you can't really touch, right? Against 5. What's that gonna do? You can't really touch them, now what? And then they can just kind of go in for attack, or someone who can. It's not technically all reality, like altering reality, just a little bit like your perception of reality, I should say, where she can do that. Like the whole I have heard a rumor. Like I think that's kind of like altering your perception of reality, at least. Well, she can't tell someone shut up, but still, it's like it's like it's not it's not as powerful, right? And so Cosmina is the one to tell him it's like Vanya seems to be isolated for a reason, and this is where he starts investigating. And it's like she's has power. She's on mood suppressants. It's a lot, right? So Cosmina is the one keeping him company, guiding him through things, and really giving him advice on some things. And this is where he says like there's also a glitch in the camera, right? Cause this is why the only reason that they could ever talk, right? Because Cameron in the corner room is 10 to 10:30 is where there's a glitch in the camera, and everything just freezes. And he constantly complains because he can never fix the glitch in the camera, but that's the only time that they could ever really fully talk is during those 30 minutes. But for like the next few days, he really gets to see like Klaus's like his normal kind of almost like schedule, really, right? He talks to Vanya, he passes notes to her, he tells her about the like he tells Vanya about he tells them about the glitch in the camera, tells them ways of how to like meditate but subtly do it, because and they know about the mood kind of suppressors, but there's not much they can really do about that, not until they're 18, and they can dip. But for now, it's like you kind of have to just play along. You don't really have a choice in it. And all those moments where they really couldn't find Klaus, right? Because Ben was looking for him and didn't find him until it was 10 o'clock, right? At night, he was in his room, he's shaking, pale. He wasn't responding. He was clearly having a panic attack, right? And that entire time where those long stretches, they couldn't find Klaus. They all thought like, oh, he had gone to get some pills. He had gone to get some drugs, like somewhere off to go get drugs, right? He was somewhere off to go get high. But and he even thought that, right? Same as like Diego, but just never really said it out loud. And it's clear that Vanya and Diego know to some extent of what's going on, just not completely like Ben does, right? But those days, it turns out he was just in training, right? So he was locked in what do you call this, mausoleum, where all the ghosts were. He's just locked in there with all the ghosts just kind of screaming at him constantly, and sometimes he'd be locked in there for days. And so all that time when they thought he was just kind of out there, oh, Klaus is just getting high somewhere, he was literally just locked in there with ghosts just screaming at him. And so when Ben had found him, like when he was like pale and shaking in his room, he called up Cosmina, and like that's where it's because he was having a panic attack. She's telling him like, okay, call almost like meditating to calm himself, right? Breathing exercise, and he would. This is where Ben starts learning how that he's holding back, right? Because he starts floating. It's like certain things around him start floating too, and he could just as easily like touch him too, right? Because in the beginning, because he had asked him, I was like, aren't you even curious about what she looks like? He's like, of course I am. But this is like the one thing he's ever been patient for. Like he's okay waiting until, they're old enough to just kind of leave, right? They're 18. So like, of course he's curious, but he's willing to wait. And of course, then, well, he's dead. He's bored. So of course he's like tried to figure out and who Cosmina is. Cosmina along with her sister Lila, right? And so she wrote on her note, and this is where he ends up grabbing, because he's upset. He grabs Ben and he's like, don't look for her. Don't try it, right? Because he doesn't want to put her in danger either. Like after everything they've been through and she's been there for him, he wants this to be, he wants to wait. But during that panic attack, this is where he learns that he wasn't sure at first, because all Klaus said was like, oh, coming back to life sucks. What does that even mean? But this is where he learns that Klaus experiences people's death sometimes, right? And so that night that had happened, the next day, because it's his birthday, Diego ends up waking him up, and he's talking like he has sore throat, right? And he sees, and this is the only part that Diego really knows about. He doesn't really know about everything else, but he knows about this because he witnessed it before. But he has like handprints around his throat as if someone was choking him. And, Diego ends up helping him. He hands him the mirror so he can see and put makeup on it to cover it up. Because then he's hiding this part of his powers. No one knows, and he said to Diego to not tell him. And the only reason Diego knows about this is because when Ben had died, Klaus had felt it. He had walked off, and he had felt it in his stomach, and then and Diego was concerned. He was gonna call Reginald. He was gonna call but he had begged him not to. And then they were told that Ben had died, and Klaus had walked off and looked at his stomach, and there was almost tentacle marks on his stomach. And so this is where Diego feels like, you felt him die. So this is the only part that he really knows. And Vanya, because they constantly kind of go back and forth, knows somewhat about it too. And knows when he's off, and the others, like Allison and Luther, when they think, Five doesn't really care, but but when they think, he's off doing drugs, Vanya and, Diego are a lot more concerned, because I know there's more to it than just he's on drugs, because that's not really the case. At one point, when Klaus was locked in the mausoleum for too long, hours probably, he was let out early, right? Longer than intended, because clearly Reginald was going to leave him in there for days probably, right? But he was let out early, and he was clearly shaken by something, but Klaus didn't really question it. He was too shaken by his experience in there anyway. But it turned out that Cosmina and Lila had went up to him and threatened him. They're like, they had threatened him, and they knew a secret of his, so of course they, and Reginald so now he's scared of teenagers. Fantastic, right? And this is the first time, because when it's Klaus's birthday, this is the first time that Ben kind of gets to see them, right? He's heard them described by Reginald, and it's the first time he gets to see them. And also see how they're kind of, they're leaving notes and a present, because it's his birthday. And it's because time freezes, and he's also frozen in time, but he's just aware of it, right? Because for others, it's just nothing happened. It's you blink and, suddenly there's a note in your hand. But for him, he's aware of it, and he can see it, but he can't move. And so that's where he sees Cosmina and Lila walk up to Klaus and hand him the letter and and everything. And Cosmina kisses his cheek, and it's pretty clear, obviously from the description, fiery red hair, description. It's okay, that's gotta be Cosmina and the other Lila, right? So Cosmina, we learn, is the one who's stopping the time, and that has something to do with her power, which I don't know if it's specifically if that's her only power, to stop time, or if it's almost a, I don't know, side effect would be the good word to put it, but it's where we're gonna learn she's the one that's able to get between the gaps, and she's the one stopping time. Over the course of the next few months, it's really just Klaus, Cosmina, and Lila really giving Ben advice to really get him used to tentacles. She just calls it the tentacle, because he's that's his own separate thing, right? To get him used to it and to bond with it, really, to get some sort of relationship with it, right? Because he resented it so much before, and It's like, well, now you're dead, so you might as well get along with her now. And so they really do over the next, help him with that, and also helping him with him like being able to touch things, right? To take it slow and not get frustrated by it just because it's not instant. Um, he does end up having Klaus does end up having a moment where he does have a vision and experiences someone's death again, and so he has to like quickly rush upstairs, which again to everyone else they assume he's on drugs, other than like Diego and Vanya, because they're just generally worried about him, but they assume he's on drugs because he's sweaty, he's clammy, so he rushes up, he ends up throwing up, some of it being blood too, because he has lifts up his shirt and he has welts as if he's been stabbed because he experienced the death of a woman who was stabbed. And over, but it's just them training, and that's when they get one of the final letters from Lila and Cosmina, where just a month left, as in like only a month longer, and then they leave. And Ben knows like that he's the one that's really holding them back, but despite all of it, because they really want, like, because he doesn't know why, but for some reason they really want him to kind of bond and create this relationship with the tentacles and really master, or well, not master, but at least gain like a semblance of control over, being able to touch things, interact with things, and having more relationship with the tentacles. And he's not really sure why. He's thankful for it, of course, because of how far he's gotten and he feels accomplished. And he's even more thankful because he knows that he's the reason like, no matter how much Klaus wants to really, and he really does want to get out of that place, he never rushes Ben, and he's the only reason why he's still there. But despite that, he never rushes Ben to learn quicker or really do anything. And so when the time finally comes for them to leave, he's already prepared, right? He's subtly packed his things. Not that Reginald really goes into Ben's room, but their mom does. So he's kind of subtly packed like some of Ben's favorite clothes. And he's got letters to deliver to Vanya and Diego, right, during the glitch. And then he dips. So um, and he even warns Diego too in the first place. He's like, please don't throw knives at me. That hurts. Like, okay. And Diego looks at him too. He's like concerned because like he obviously knows how it feels. He's felt being stabbed before, but he can't help but be like concerned. Like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to, but Jesus. And but so when he ends up delivering the letters, it's because he had asked Diego before too, like, oh, so what do you want to do? Like months before, it's like, what do you want to do? Like when you're out of here, what do you want to do? It's like, oh, please, the cat, like he wants to do that, right? And so that's what he had, he delivers the letters, he practically throws it at them and then dips, right? Because again, you only have 30 minutes for the glitch. So he dips and goes to meet Cosmina and Lila, and they, have a little reunion. It's like, oh, it's the first time really meeting in person too. And then they dip before Diego and Vanya can really get out, right? So they're gone now. And Diego, in his letter, is like him telling Klaus, the chief doesn't even know who he is, but he probably will after this. But because he had helped on old cold cases and new ones too that are really difficult because again, seeing ghosts and all that, he owes him a favor. So he's able to get Diego into the police academy. Of course, he still has to do like the work on his own, really, but he's able to get him in the door. And he's given, now he's got some money too, just to start so like he's not just kind of laying flat on his face, right? And he says, by the way, reminds him of the glitch, like, you only have so much time, hurry up, right? And he kind of leaves it at that. No, like, he doesn't try and persuade him or anything. Not that they really need persuasion, but, like, he just leaves it at that. And it's up to them if they want to leave. And same thing with Vanya. They read the letter. Klaus tells them they had a friend, which is Cosmina and Lila. It's like they have a house set up for Vanya. It's perfectly kind of isolated and suitable for them so they can practice, with their sound waves and kind of get it under control. Music wise, in the little academy thing, don't even worry about it. You're already in the door, right? And here's some money to get you started up. And that whole, again, the glitch thing, mentioning it, and that the glitch will only last for this night. So they really only have this night to leave, because the glitch, which makes sense because it's Cosmina and Lila causing the glitch. And now that Klaus is gone, really no point, in really being there. That's all that they're there for. Do they like the others? Sure. But Klaus is like, number one. So now that Klaus is there anymore, no point in causing the gap. So this is really their only time to sneak out. So if they're gonna do it, now's the time. So Vanya and Diego running around and getting clothes, and they're rushing out because it's like 10:10. So they don't have much time left. So they're rushing out. They run into each other like, oh my god! It's like Klaus, like yeah. It's like, did they mention Ben in your letter too? Because they end up showing a picture of Ben where he's like, he's they're able to see him in the picture, and Tentacle's waving at the camera too. It's like, you never mentioned before. It's like, well, you never really asked. They find another letter too, and that's clearly written by Lila and Mina, where they're saying, that, well, you never really asked about Ben, and also the cars. Don't crash them. It's like, you got the cars, do. And so, again, by the time they're out there, Lila, Klaus, and Mina, Ben, they're already gone, but they get in their cars and they dip. They don't even look back. So now it's only, I was supposed to say 3. 5's like already gone by this point, I think. So it's really just, yeah, he's gone by this point. So it's really just Luther and Allison. That's it. It's only just them 2 left. Back with Klaus, Ben, Mina, and Lila. They're back at their apartment, and the first thing Ben takes in is, wow, this is really colorful and a lot of patterns, but not that it's so busy. Still comforting, very them. But also, considering the only time he's ever seen them is when they're on, the Umbrella Academy grounds, and they've stopped time, is when like they're dressed in all black. So for 2 people dressed in all black, very colorful apartment. Like, very colorful. And like Mina's like in her room, because Klaus and her went to go take a nap. I mean, everyone really did. Tiring day. Is that her mattress, everything's very cold. Her mattress on the floor. And then he looks in Lila's room. It's very clean. It still has like the same aesthetic, but very clean and very white. So it's like, oh, so all the patterns is definitely Mina's thing. Okay, it was definitely her. She's the one who definitely came up with it. But he eventually goes to lay down, and the first time ever, even as as a ghost, he feels tired. And so he ends up taking a nap. And it's lasting for so long that he doesn't notice that the other 3 end up leaving. So they end up leaving. They're sneaking out because it's supposed to be part of Ben's surprise. So they leave, and they end up going to Umbrella Academy grounds, right to the graveyard of Ben's little grave. And obviously they stop time, right? So glitch. And because again, this is never happening again. So she stopped time. So Mina has the ability to manipulate time and see through it, right? But she can't like travel through time. So, which this helps out a lot because they end up digging it up, right? And then with Lila being able to copy Klaus's powers, they end up basically summoning Ben back to his body. I mean, after Mina cleans it up a bit, right? She reverses the time on the body so the wounds aren't there, but also moves time forward on it so that he's no longer 16 anymore, right? Because now they're 18. So now the body's 18. And they end up summoning him to his body, basically. And he fights it for a bit because also he doesn't really know what's happening, right? The only time he's ever felt this is when Klaus summoned him. So he doesn't know what's happening. So he fights it for a bit. And so the next thing he knows, Ben wakes up. He sees the 3 of them just standing over him. He's like, what am I looking at with you? Like, what's happening? And he's like, welcome back to Land of Living. here's some clothes and take a shower. He's like, you stink. They end up taking Ben, obviously, because it's the first time he's been alive in, 2 years. So they end up taking him to McDonald's. He's gotten changed. Ben's over there touching everything because he's like, oh my god. Because he doesn't need to try to really touch anything anymore, right? He's just feeling it. He's alive again. And they scarf down all the food and not going back for seconds. And then they go into a store. Well, Klaus and Mina go into the store as Lila's explaining her powers to Ben. And then they have to quickly drive off because they stole it. They didn't pay for it. So, fantastic. I don't know. And so they end up leaving. And this is where we learn not only is Mina like her thing with time, it's also visions. But I mean, still with time. It's just her seeing through time, right? Past and present and different outcomes. And so she gets a vision and they're quick, which also explains why her mattress is on the floor, because she'll often get visions and then just kind of fall out of bed, which, not that much will fall down around on the floor. So she gets a vision, much like how Klaus can when, he's being murdered. And it's of some woman, right? Some girl, right? Sloane. Fantastic. Another one. They don't have much information yet because this just happened and she's already knocked out. But this is how, Lila explains that this is how Mina had found her, right? Because she has seen the outcome if she didn't intervene, right? She has seen what Lila would go through if she didn't step in. And she had seen that for all of them, really. Well, Klaus. And him too, I guess, actually. Then we get a bit of vibe on what he's going through. He meets his older self, right? Already, and he's warning him and telling him it's like things are changing. You can get back to your family, right? And he's telling him to, especially watch out for a fire hydrant, right? Or a fire extinguisher. He's like, watch out for that. But and he's like warning him and telling him like things are already changing, but so there's still like a chance like really to turn it in your favor, right? Because he asks him, like, think back, like when you first got to like the apocalypse, there was more in the family than there were before it wasn't there. And he thinks back and he's seeing his siblings dead, and there were. They all looked like they were protecting someone, right? Luther was like protecting some woman he didn't really recognize, and Ben was here and alive. Like it looked like someone like Ben, Klaus, and like there was he was there with some woman and a little boy between them, and it was the same with Klaus, some woman and a little girl between them, and he's realizing, holy shit, like Ben's actually alive, and those people are like part of this, and so he tells them. It's like trust the Valentine sisters, right? As in like Cosmina and Lila. And it's like trust them, right? Because that's clearly your niece and that's clearly your nephew, right? And I mean, in that moment, they were frozen in time. So Five didn't see it because he had already walked away at that point. But it is like, he tells them to trust them. And he tells them that because things are already changing, there originally were two Valentine sister, and now there's 3. So clearly, she's gonna end up joining, and they're gonna get a whole mess of things. Back with the other 4, they're now, after the whole vision and everything, they're now okay. We gotta look for Sloane, right? Get her to join, and everything will be fine. And they do by literally just being like, "Surprise, we're here!" And they tell her about like born the same day. Same power, like not same powers, but like we all have powers too. And join our weird found family. Like, it's basically what it is, right? I mean, it also tells her like to move on from, because she kind of felt guilty, right? It's her mom, I think it was. It's like tell that her mom was like pushing her to join their little weird found family that got going on. And so, she does like the idea of like Sloane Valentine, like, all right. So she does end up joining them. And much like Ben when he first saw the apartment, it's like, why is everything on the ground? Okay, not everything's on the ground, but like the couch isn't like, it doesn't raise off the floor. They hadn't even seen like Mina and Klaus's room yet where the mattress is on the floor. It's just like, why is it on the floor? It's like safety purposes. Don't worry about it. And so they show her to her room, they get her settled, and then Ben, Lila, and Sloan end up hearing a thud, right? And they go to the kitchen, they run to see Mina. She's making some so they slushies, not slushies, she's making some shakes. She's like, oh yeah, thought mango failure or to it. It's like, oh cool. It's like, and then they notice, and then she kind of, again, cause kind of seeing through time, whatever. She's like, could you get the like anti-inflammatory thing? I was like, oh yeah, sure. She adds, it's a powder. She adds it to like one of the shakes. And that's when I was like, where's Klaus? It's like, oh, dead. What? That's what the thought was. This man just casually died. He's just on the floor because someone was choked and stabbed, so he experienced her death. It's like, oh, okay. So she's like, get the bucket quickly, throws it out, and gives them it. And she does feel bad because, like, again, she can see through time, but she isn't always looking, like, which, makes sense. You're constantly looking in the future, so she's not always looking. And so she couldn't really catch him in time or warn him, like, you're going to hit your head on my dad. So she kind of feels bad about that. So to make her feel better, he's like, oh, I'm already feeling, a bit better, right? And so that's when they put on about their business idea, right? They've always had this idea, like when he was in the academy, right? And they were stuck and they were a part of this little business they have of helping people, of using their powers, right? It's also a way to Klaus to use his power in a way of like really getting him used to it and to ease into it and not just suddenly be thrown in the deep end and having all these girls yell at him. It's, using their powers to help people with like moving on, like their ghosts and getting closure and also solving some cases here and there. That's their business idea. And because she can, like, see through time, see future, she always sees it working out. And Klaus always has like a fear of like, because his powers, and what he goes through and just kind of suddenly, falling dead, he has a fear of like not really being financially stable because holding on a job would probably be hard if you just kind of die mid shift. And so to see, I mean, not that it would matter because Mina, the way that she supported herself and Lila before they came was literally because she could see their bets. It's just see through time. It's just like betting on literally whatever, right? Lottery, what? Who cares, right? It's just betting. She can already see what wins, so it's just like ta-da. So it really doesn't matter if it doesn't make that much money in, like it doesn't make like a certain amount of money because infinite. It's a glitch, money glitch, and so then speaking of that, she ends up having a vision because of the whole stabby thing where he died from. She notices that Diego's on the case, so she's like, "Oh, you gotta meet with the chief because Diego's on that case," and he's kind of confused because he's a rookie. But then they figure if they help him all along with this, this will also be good for him and his growth because him exploring his power more of controlling metal, and him also getting more separate cases too, like that really do suit him and his ability, so he can really go at it. So they end up meeting in a diner, and this is like first time in a while that they meet, and Klaus, or not Klaus, well, yeah. And so Diego, when they talk about it, it's more of a thing they have set up where he gives them hints, like a vague description of the guy you're looking for, right? Of like, oh, this is the murderer. So they're not overly reliant on him. Not that he really, he doesn't really want them to be reliant on him either. He also evades the question of where's Ben. He's not technically lying. He's not here, but he's like, he's just not with me right now. Bitch kind of leaves out. He's alive. No reason to say that right now. And this is the point where Diego really starts thinking back, like as, when they were younger and how he really did treat him and Vanya really shitty, right? He really didn't treat them all that great, especially since he really like kept in contact with Vanya. Because even though he might not have kept in that much in touch with Klaus, because he's off doing his own thing, he had, because Klaus had wrote it down on their notes, each other's numbers, so they've kept in contact a lot and talked to each other. So he's really realizing that, you know, the way that they were treated and everything, and how and really they did put together too, like, because, well, it was more her, she put it together, she's like, wait, if Vanya has these powers, wouldn't they know about it? It's like, and clearly they put together that Vanya had killed the other nannies and like was rumored, and Klaus had texted him like, don't tell Vanya that. It's like, we'll tell them eventually, but right now they're learning to gain control, and this would kind of set them back. It's like, all right, yeah, you have to agree with it. It wouldn't be productive for them. But this is where, and she expresses to Diego that, like, this part of growing up, you might realize, like, as a kid, you might not treat your siblings like, and she can see how protective Diego is of Vanya and Klaus now, right? And Diego now understands that he really hurt them just from, like, kind of ignoring their pain, and he really feels bad about that because he couldn't see it from their point of view, and he ignored everything. I mean, Klaus really, like, he dies, and it's, especially kind of hear about it, it's like, it's so much worse than you really ever imagined. And so for him to kind of go through that alone and having to go constantly scream at him, and like, it must have been terrifying. And so he even, like, really openly, like, apologizes to both of them, really, for how he treated them. And so it's really, like, the three of them. I love it. They end up setting up their business with all of them, as they're like, they all have separate rooms. Klaus has, like, black and pink themes. Of course he does. Sloan's galaxy theme. Everyone's just got something else going on with their own rooms. I don't it's a mess. But there's also a clause of, like, okay, no, you're not allowed to tell Ben, or, like, to tell, because you're not allowed to tell that Ben's alive. And that Klaus, because the cover story is like, Ben had run away when he was dead, right? That's why he's here. And then Klaus had run away like 2 years later. Like, that's the cover story, technically, even though it's, I mean, clearly not true, but they don't need to know that. But, as they're all exploring themselves and going and, like, really finding themselves, they all three of them keep in contact with each other. And, Vanya, they're kind of getting off the mood medication, and they're slowly gaining control of themselves. Diego's really finding himself in the police department, especially since he kind of works somewhat alongside Klaus because with his business. So he does get kind of frustrated because, again, Mina can see through time. So anytime she sees that he's coming over, her along with Lila, Sloan, and Ben immediately disappear. Klaus kind of laughs at it because it's like, I mean, what did she expect? Of course they're going to mess with you. See through time. They're not going to want to meet unless, like, she wants to. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!